Soba noodles are a familiar dish to many Japanese people. But not many of us have actually seen it being harvested.
そこら辺に生えてるそういう草みたいな。はい。
Some soba noodles are pure white. What could the secret behind its color be? Also, discover the strange soba made in Edo era Tokyo.
こねて足で踏んだりする。
はあはあはあ。
手打ちじゃない足踏みそばって言います。
From harvesting buckwheat to preparing the dough, on this episode, we will look at how soba noodles are made.
Welcome to the show where Boys and Men introduces Japanese tradition and culture to the world. Think you've seen it all? Well, you just might learn a thing or two. Boys and Men, Japanesque.
Even within the famous soba producing region of Nagano, Ina City is one of the top producers. Today, Boys and Men member and Nagano native Yuhi will be visiting a place that makes soba.
そば畑は見たことがないですね。なんとなく実のイメージはあるんですけど、なんかテレビとかでこう吸ってるあの実のイメージはあるんですけど。すみません、こんにちは。これがそば。
これがそばです。
あんまりそれちょっとイメージとちょっと違くて。
ちょっと違うでしょ。
そこら辺に生えてるそういう草みたいな、はい、黒いところが。
ちっちゃい黒いとかそう。
はい。これがそばの実。
About a month after they're planted, buckwheat plants grow white flowers. While the flowers offer a nice view while they're in bloom, harvesting starts after the flowers have died. This is when the seeds ripen and turn black. At this farm, they use a combine made especially for buckwheat. This one machine can handle everything up to the threshing process.
これがそうです。
すごい。こんな綺麗に取れるんですか？
そうですね。
あの機械だけで。
そう選別できるんですよ。選別機ついてるから。
ちょっと触ってもいいですか？
はい。
あ、こんな感じなんだ。小学校低学年の時に朝顔を育ててくださいみたいな、あんな種に似てますね。
似てますね。それでどこにもあるような種。
As the second largest producer of buckwheat in the country after Hokkaido, Nagano always has been known for its soba.
そばってなんでそんなに長野県で多いんですか？
まあなんと言ったらいいか。簡単だもんで別に
簡単そんな
作るのは簡単だもんで。
Buckwheat is ready for harvest after 3 months after the seeds are planted, with 2 harvests each year. In addition to the short amount of time they take to grow, they're capable of weathering harsh environments and don't require much pest or weed control. The downside is that they are highly inefficient as crops, only yielding around 1/10 of the amount as rice for the same area. Though surrounded by mountains, Nagano had plenty of space to grow buckwheat. That's how it became one of the top producers in the country. Harvested buckwheat seeds are dried for a few days, thoroughly polished, then turned into buckwheat flour at restaurant and flour mills. Speaking of which, this raises a question. Why do soba noodles have different colors? You may have noticed some types of soba are light in color, while others are darker. We asked Mr. Toranosuke Katayama, a soba expert who has written a soba column in Sarai magazine for over 20 years. According to Mr. Katayama, the secret lies in the structure of the buckwheat seeds.
これはどういう構造になってるかというと、一番外側黒い殻で覆われてるんです。でその中に甘皮といって薄い緑の皮があって、 でその中はですね、今度でんぷん質の粉が入ってるんです。この3つをですね、どういうふうに組み合わせるかでこの色が変わってくるんです。
Grinding whole buckwheat seeds in the stone mortar initially turns just the starchy inside part into powder. By putting this through a shifter, you get a white buckwheat flour known as sarashinako. Using this type of flour produces soba that is pure white. Although comparatively less flavorful, this type of soba is known for its smooth texture. The color and taste depend on the ratio of the starchy inner part to the more flavorful green layer and outer shell layers. These black specks are finely crushed buckwheat shell. What effect does mixing in the shell have?
ただ黒い殻っていうのはね、使い方でね、非常に有効なね、なんていうのかな、スパイスのような役割を果たすんですよ。
Mixing in a little bit of shell gives the noodle a grainier texture and distinct aroma.
だからどういうそばを作りたいかっていうのをそば職人が考えて、で、じゃあこういう粉にしようというふうに粉の作り方を工夫するわけです。
Furthermore, adding white flour gives the soba a slippery texture. The most famous example of this is Nihachi soba, made from 20% white and 80% buckwheat flour. The easy-to-eat Nihachi soba was popularized in old Tokyo, offering its busy citizens a way to enjoy a quick snack. However, some shops started adding too much white flour, creating soba that became indistinguishable from udon noodles.
うどんの作り方って何かというと、こねて足で踏んだりするわけです。手打ちじゃない、足踏みそばなんです。だからうちはそんなことしないよ、うちは10割で手打ちで丁寧に作るんだよっていうので、その志の高いそば職人は手打ちそばって名前を掲げてね。
Nowadays, the term teuchi is used to distinguish handmade from machine-made soba, but teuchi soba also existed in pre-industrial Tokyo. Now that he has learned about buckwheat flour, it's time for Yuhi to try soba making at this restaurant in Ina City. Let's see how soba is made.
今日は28のそばというそばの世界でいう28のそば。
2対8の。
そうです。
First, the buckwheat and white flour are mixed. Next, water is added and hand mixed with the flour. This process is called mizumawashi.
塊がないように、サラサラの状態になる。そば打ちの最も大切な工程。
ここが一番大切なんですか。
結構手つきがいいじゃないですか。
いいです。センスあります。あれですかね。僕の高校時代の陶芸を習っていたっていう技術が活かせてるんですかね。
Normally, this technique is the hardest to master, taking years of hard training. If the water is not spread evenly, the noodles will fall apart. This is followed by the rubbing, kneading, air release, and folding stages before the dough is flattened.
開いていますね。だいたい四角になって
ますね。
The dough is shaped into a square so that when it's folded and cut, the noodles will be of the same length. This technique was developed to avoid wasting any dough.
やばい。切った直後、麺がどんどんちぎれていってる。
It seems the mizumashi wasn't done properly, as the noodles have fallen apart a little. But all the same, Yuhi's freshly kneaded, freshly cut, and freshly boiled soba is complete. Now, it's time to taste his very own soba.
太さはバラバラだけど、そばに対する気持ちは入ってるんで。でももうちょっと細い方がよろしいかな。こうやって今体験してみて改めて思いましたけど、 すごいですね、日本のそば職人の腕は。